So this video is going to be about how expats insulate themselves in expat bubbles and why you should avoid that if possible, in my opinion anyway. So yeah, you see a lot of people moving abroad trying to recreate the life they left behind. They don't want to integrate. They don't want to learn the language. They don't want to spend time with the locals. Brits in Spain having English breakfast, reading British newspapers, socialising almost exclusively with other Brits and not learning any Spanish. The same goes for North Americans in Mexico, settling into expat heavy areas like San Miguel Gialangi, like Chapala, Puerto Vallarta, and they gravitate to American style cafes, diners, watch US sports in expat bars, sports bars, that sort of thing, shop at malls which resemble what they're used to in the US, catering to foreigners, etc., and mostly hanging out with English-speaking circles. And this continues in places like Costa Rica, Colombia, and most of Latin America. I suppose it goes on in places like Thailand and other expat-heavy countries of the world. I live here in Brazil, and I live in a community which only has one other gringo that I know of. And he's from Austria, and everyone else is Brasileiros from Sao Paulo and Rio Grande do Sul for the most part. I wouldn't have it any other way because it's forced me to learn Portuguese. And in 1 year, my Portuguese is like 10,000% better. Okay, I'm not fluent, but compared to what I was, which is literally zero, obrigado, that was it, all I knew. Now I'm holding conversations, I'm kind of intermediate now. By no means fluent, but yeah, 1 year I'm pretty pleased with my progress. And I put that down to living amongst Brazilians. And most people don't speak English, which is good, by the way. I prefer that. Living in these bubbles feels comfortable because you're surrounded by the people who share your language, humour, background. You know, they like the same sports, they drink the same alcoholic drinks, they have the same type of humour. So it's easy to find support and advice and you never really feel lost. But over time, that comfort can turn into confinement. If your main social contacts are other expats, it becomes harder and harder to make friends with locals or take part in what's actually going on around you. I'm in the local Moradoras group, the WhatsApp group here, and they're always putting things in there about churrascos in the communal churrasco here and other events and whatnot. It's great because then you can go and join in with these events. Again, integrating more, meshing with the local population. And especially for my kids, I feel this is absolutely important for them to feel Brazilian because we don't want them to grow up feeling like a spare part. Many people report feeling disconnected or even invisible in their adopted country, you know, living on the sidelines. So owning property and having residency doesn't guarantee belonging. You have to invest in the local culture and community, and or you risk being seen and feeling like just a long-term visitor. You should be learning the language, listening to the music they listen to, not just international music, like proper, like in my case, Brazilian music, pagode, samba, bossa nova. Okay, I don't listen to it every day, but I certainly listen to it. And I've been picking out songs that I like from the playlist and putting them together. And Brazilians like that. When you show them, hey, do you like this song? And you put it on for them, and like, they can't believe that you know that song. Language is a massive barrier, and most people underestimate how important it is by not learning the local language well. You miss out on jokes, local news, deeper conversations, and understanding your community. Learning the language is a magical experience, to be honest. Like, I mean, I never thought I'd be speaking Portuguese this well. It's overtook my Spanish now. They also say that learning a language helps with keeping your mind sharp and creating new connections in your brain. So yeah, it's definitely worth doing. Locals usually appreciate any effort you make. Even if you make mistakes, it doesn't matter. Like, the only way you ever grow in life is by being outside your comfort zone and potentially making a fool of yourself. And the amount of times that I've said silly things when, you know, that make no sense in Portuguese, or I've said the wrong word where it's like, it's humorous. You've got to laugh at yourself now. Trying to speak their language is a sign of respect, in my opinion, and willingness to connect. If you only use English or whatever language you speak. So you're left out of everything important locally, debates, subtle cultural cues, and even business chances. Speaking the local language opens doors and helps you build lasting relationships. Big expat communities can drive up rents, change the atmosphere of the neighbourhoods, and sometimes cause frustration among locals, with the gentrification of areas. Because let's not forget, most of these expat countries are countries that don't have the same purchasing power. So you're bringing your dollars over there, your pounds and whatever it might be, euros, and you can just outcompete everybody and you just push up all the prices, and that can be a source of contention. So I'm under no illusion that I'm probably a part of that. Locals see their traditional areas become more expensive and filled with foreign influences, which can lead to tension or division. Expats need to be aware of the impact that their presence has and look for ways to contribute positively. So where you choose to live matters a lot, especially with family. You don't need to move to unsafe areas just for the authenticity or, just to show how edgy you are. But you shouldn't stay isolated in expat compounds either. There are ways to be part of the local community, shopping at local markets, sending your kids to a local school where they can make friends outside the expat bubble, supporting neighbourhood projects, volunteering, and showing you care about the place. A lot of people end up returning home. The most common reason is they never really felt like their new country was theirs. Without local friends, language and rituals, you're a visitor for life. It's like living in a hotel or a resort. And that's what a lot of people do. For instance, like in Dominican Republic, I remember there was a lot of golf resorts in the Punta Cana area, Cocotal and Hard Rock Cafe and whatnot. And that's where most of the foreigners lived, in those areas. So that's not what we wanted for our kids. And here we're plugged into the community, into the Brazilian way of life. My kids speak Portuguese now, better than me, because they're just speaking it for 8 hours a day now. They're at school. They speak it when they're outside playing with their friends in the street. So they picked up really quick. I think it's not because they're young, but just because they've gotten so much practice. I mean, I don't think and speak in Portuguese all day long, probably about 2 hours max each day. So if I was to have to speak and think in Portuguese for 8 hours a day, or most of the day, I think my Portuguese would probably be much better than what it is now. As time goes on, you might notice that you don't really feel at home anywhere. Your ties to your home country fade, but you never really lay down new ones abroad either. This can lead to a sense of being stuck between places, like I said, a spare part with no real roots anywhere. It's especially important if you have kids abroad, that this can hit even harder for them. Children who grow up in international schools, surrounded by foreigners and speaking mostly English, for instance, may always feel different in their new home than, say, if they were sent to a Portuguese-speaking school. Like the school that we sent our kids to is just a standard elementary school, and they have one lesson of English a day, and I think it's pretty basic as well. But everything else is in Portuguese. We didn't want to send them to a bilingual school because what's the point? Our kids can speak English. Like we speak English all the time in the home. That's one thing I draw a line in the sand, is where inside the house we speak English because they need to continue speaking English. Otherwise, the Portuguese is going to take over. Like if we speak Portuguese in the house and then they're outside speaking Portuguese, I think then they're going to forget how to speak English, or their vocabulary will suffer and their reading will suffer. So anyway, when we're at home, they speak English. We speak English between us all the time, and their English is fine. One of my boys was 4 when he moved there. His vocabulary wasn't amazing, but he's still picking up words in English. But obviously his Portuguese is coming along much faster than there, but that's fine by me, as long as he can understand me and we can have a conversation. They watch TV in English as well, mostly. We don't make them watch TV in Portuguese. So I think there's a good split there, where that's the best way to make a kid bilingual. The school that we sent our kids to is a private school, but it's not that expensive. It's probably about $300, $400 a month for one kid. Obviously, the materials and stuff on top of that. So yeah, homeschooling, this is just my opinion, by the way, but homeschooling can amplify this isolation even more, especially abroad. I mean, imagine their world is just seeing their family all day long and not interacting with the kids very much. If you don't live in an apartment complex or a condominium as well, then all their time is going to be spent with their parents. When kids are sort of at home and don't interact regularly with local children for most of the day, it becomes even harder for them to build friendships, understand local culture and feel any sense of belonging outside the family bubble. They can end up feeling English in Spain, American in Mexico, or just out of place everywhere. You know, they feel lost. I can certainly imagine that being the case if you don't integrate your kids into the local culture. So when they're old enough, a lot want to move to where they feel like they could truly belong, often back to Europe or the US. So for parents, it's tough to realise your child never settled where you put down roots. I think they're called third culture kids. Yeah, many feel they don't have a true home and struggle with identity and belonging. Real roots means investing time and energy in the local daily life, shop at local markets, go to local sports clubs, volunteer, hobbies. For instance, my wife goes to a pottery class here in Florianopolis, and she is surrounded by other Brazilians, so she speaks Portuguese for them. You know, so it can be anything that gets you integrating, mixing with the locals. You can attend festivals and events and make friends outside the expat circles. You can encourage your children to interact with local classmates and activities and learn the language together as a family. If you're living abroad, you've got to ask yourself, are you just living in a bubble or actually making a sustained effort to integrate? I do find it kind of ironic that a lot of Americans and British complain about foreigners coming over to these countries, UK and US, wherever it might be, Canada, Australia, whatever. And then when we go abroad, we do exactly the same thing. So like I said, in Spain, there's whole towns which are full of British people, like Benidorm, for instance. And when you go in Benidorm, and then the Costa del Sol as well, it's just full of British bars and that. I'm got nothing against that. But if it was me, I wouldn't want to live in that, because that's just like, I've jumped out of the UK just to try and live the UK in the sun. And isn't that what a lot of people are complaining about in the UK, about people coming over and not learning the language, living in ghettos or whatever, where it's only Asians or black people or African people or whatever it might be, living in little enclaves? And isn't that what we do as well? I find it arrogant, to be honest, that anybody who comes to another country and then deems it unnecessary to learn the local language or integrate or anything like that, I find that so arrogant. If the shoe was on the other foot, that person would probably complain about that in the US or UK. Oh, they're coming over here, they're not integrating, they're not speaking English, they're stealing our jobs or whatever it might be. You know, we got to lead by example. I'd feel embarrassed coming over here and not speaking Portuguese or not integrating with the locals and whatnot. And I'll feel kind of lost. What's the point in moving abroad if that's what you're going to do? Anyway, so getting truly involved isn't always easy or comfortable. It's one of the most important things you can do for yourself and your family's happiness and real sense of belonging. So I've just done a little bit more research here, the phenomenon of third culture kids. And it says here, research on expat families and third culture kids shows that a sense of belonging abroad depends on building real relationships and engaging with local society as much as possible. Those who integrate, who learn the language, participate in community life, adapt to local norms, have a far higher chance of their host country feeling like home. Those who don't often withdraw psychologically and socially and eventually go back home. Yeah, it makes sense, doesn't it? If you don't fit in, you don't feel like you fit in, and it doesn't matter how beautiful the place is now, it doesn't matter how cheap it is. If you feel like you fit in, but your kids don't, and you might think, who cares? Like, they've got to go where I tell them. They've got to do what I tell them or whatever. Well, that'll work until when they're 16 or something like that, and they start demanding their freedom, or they're talking about when they want to go back to the UK or back to their home country, whatever it might be. So you can't ignore it. And the best way to stop that from happening, in my opinion, is to make them feel at home in their adopted country. So in my case, I want my kids to feel Brazilians, or at the very least, British Brazilian. They feel that they can belong in both places. Even if they turn to me and say, I only want to experience life in the UK, that's fine. But maybe they'll want to come back here if we give them enough reasons to want to come back here, like friendships, like genuine friendships, feeling part of this culture here. I mean, I'm not trying to dissuade them from ever going back to England, but at the same time, I think it's imperative that you plan ahead. If you want you and your family to spend the rest of your lives in your home country, then you better make sure that they all sign up to integrating and feeling part of the culture and making friends. Obviously, making friends is a big one, though, especially for kids. So thanks for watching. If you got any value out of this, just give me a like, comment, subscribe. I want to hear from anybody out there, your opinions as well. If you're an expat or you're thinking about moving abroad, do you agree it's necessary to plug yourself into the local community? Do you agree that you need to learn the local language in order to integrate? I want to hear from you. I'm not pretending I know it all. I'm learning as well. So it'd be interesting to hear some other perspectives. Thanks.